Okay, so I switched to the iMac. So none of my Stream Deck settings work. My background's not working. Okay, so I switched to the iMac. Let me turn the monitor off. So none of my Stream Deck settings work.
All of it.
My background's not working.
Okay. The ring light fell off, so now it's tied together with tape.
And none of my Stream Deck settings work.
All of it. Oh my God.
My background's not working.
I decided ring light fell off the old iMac because I was sick of moving my laptop.
And none of my Stream Deck settings work. All of it.
Oh my
My
God.
background's not working.
I decided ring light whole fucking workflow setup
Together with
moving my
tape.
laptop.
And
And of course it all falls apart because the files aren't linked and all that stuff.
the ring light
Whole fucking workflow setup.
together with tape.
It all falls apart because the files. I wake up every morning and I'm like, I'm prepared. I think I feel like screaming today. All falls apart. I wake up every morning. I'm prepared. I think I feel like screaming today. I got sound prepared. Okay. Is that better? We better. Okay, give me 1 sec. Also, my keyboard won't work for some fucking reason, so I can't type. I have to use the on-screen keyboard because my other keyboard is over there because the dickhead decided that I wanted 2 separate desks, one for work and one for streaming, because I can't work with lights around me, and it's annoying. But everything I need is over there. Fucking hell. I'll get it sorted for tomorrow. But give me a second. Hang on, just let me open up the chat, see if you're there. Going good. It's great. Oh, fucking hell. I don't know why I do this, if I'm honest with you. I don't know why. But, you know, it's good. I think it is worth it because you do notice when I haven't streamed in a while, or, you know, once I get into a groove or whatever, you notice all these things, and it takes practice and time, and you got to keep doing it. And if you're not somebody who's like a pro, this is your job, this is what you do, it's your calling in life, it's just, you got to keep going, you got to keep trying and keep going, otherwise it just becomes fucking futile. I don't even know if I said words then. So, hello. A little bit rattled because nothing, the second you hit live and everything, all the parts fall off because I hit start on my Stream Deck and forgot that I hadn't configured any of the buttons. So it's like mad scrambling. That's what it is. It's how it is. Still better than 90% of the fucking streams out there. Don't worry. We'll get there in the end. So, how is everybody? So, today's Melbourne Cup Day, which inexplicably, after a pandemic, seems to be the thing that's come back. Seems to be that horse torture is every year now. Basically, a horse fucking breaks a leg or like ends up being like put down or something. It's like, can we just end this thing? Can we end this monstrous fucking tradition? I hate it. So anyway, you can watch another fucking train wreck in the form of Taya. Those are your only 2 choices, as I said. Horses dying or watching me. So, give me a sec. So my keyboard's not working, so I can't type. Going well. Hope the sound is working. If the sound's not working, then this is a waste of time. But who cares? Now it's the time of day where not many people show up, so that's okay. Now I haven't streamed for a while because I've been busy doing my website and other things. But I'm going to start slowly putting myself out there. I'm going to be on some things, which is weird and scary. And because the difference between doing things and talking about doing things is that you got to do things. Who knew? But yeah, I'm almost ready to launch. I appreciate people's patience if you're giving me money and those sorts of things, which I very much appreciate. And I know I haven't been much in touch lately, but I've been quietly, and very long hours and, all that sort of stuff, trying to get the website done so that you can move over and not be dependent on Patreon and all those sorts of things. If you're a current patron, you'll be able to log on and authenticate. If you've given me money, you'll get an invite. Okay, if you've done a flat donation, you'll get an invite
as a gesture, and I'll give you a few months free or something. I don't know. I don't like asking for money from people. I want rich people to pay for stuff. But what there's also going to be, because a big part of this is trying new models, right? And figuring out ways to sort of bypass this thing, which, of course the grifters will fucking, as soon as you develop a new model, the fuckwits will ruin it. That's how it is. The second you put out IP, the second you say something, someone will take it and use it in the way that it wasn't intended. That's the internet. But, I'm trying new models in ways where, like the sort of circumvent the thing that I'm talking about today, which is audience capture. But also I want to, it also sort of makes people show their hands, which is what I want. Is I'm going to have some paywalled content. But what I'm going to do is have the option for those with money, okay, who believe that information should be accessible and free, who believe these things, they can pay a large lump sum to make sure that that's open source for everyone, okay? And what I will do is then credit and switch off the small donations from people, who whatever, I've got to figure out how that works in the back end. But basically it's like, I'm going to make people fucking pay, make the rich people pay. Why shouldn't ordinary people be paying to access content when that's not how this should work, which is that, you can't, I will write something, it will be paywalled, everyone can pay for it, but I'm going to put on the option of if you reach a certain threshold or someone does a major donation or something like that, I will then open that content up so that I get paid and everyone else gets to read stuff for free. I think that might be a way of doing it. Again, I've got to iron out some of the questions and policies around these things. But, we can figure this out. We can figure it out. There's new ways to do things. There's always a new way that works with the best of people. Patreon started with an assumption about people, bringing out the best in people, and that doesn't change. So anyway, but one of the big problems, I think I want to talk about Russell Brand a little bit today, because on one hand, right, I tend to be charitable. Don't laugh. I do. You wouldn't think so, but I do. I try. We're all just part of a machine that we have to do certain things we're not proud of, okay? But I try to be understanding. But people have been talking a lot about sort of the slide of sort of Jimmy Dore, the slide of Russell Brand, that sort of right-wing talking point argument. Now, the problem is that it exists, okay? It definitely exists. There is empirical evidence that there is a gateway to the alt-right, whatever that means. And see, this is the thing with this whole culture. The whole problem with the culture wars is that the real issues get lost, which is also, that's by design. But only somebody who is really savvy can do this and not slide in the direction that they didn't intend. Now, I was reading this book. I mean, it's a book that's been on my queue for some time. And obviously I know quite a bit about fascism as a phenomenon. But this book really, it actually, filled in a few gaps for me. It was quite a great historical account of, there was quite a few gaps that I hadn't really considered before. It's called The Anatomy of Fascism by Robert O. Paxton. I've got it on my website. And what he said, it's really resonated with me, because what I'm seeing is there is a valid criticism for those who understand how fascism works and operates. And this is something that, again, bad people are going to use what you say for whatever fucking agenda that they've got, okay? They're going to do that. That's what bad people do. They're thieves and grifters and opportunists. They're not good people. They're going to do that. But I don't want good people caught up in stuff and participating in something that they think that they are anti-gravity on planet Earth. And they think they're above this. They think they're able to break this thing. And they don't realize that there's actual data, proof, evidence, whatever you want to call it, for this gateway. And history proves that this is quite precarious. Now, audience capture. Let's talk about a bit about that, what that means. And also why I think people are concerned about Russell Brand. Now, I'm trying to be charitable. Of course I am. Like, I want to be. I would like to think that Russell Brand knows all of this stuff. I would like to think that he knows that the language of the working class and working class rhetoric was borrowed by the fascist movements in the early in the early days, in the early stages of fascism. Okay, so Robert O. Paxton is different from others where he's defined fascism as having distinct stages to it. And I think this is where people get confused. Fascism isn't an ideology per se, it's a process. And I think that that's really important takeaway. But also what happens is that there's this bait and switch that occurs with fascism, is that it, through history, the most successful fascist movements, right? What they did was I'm trying to think of analogies here because as I do more media, I need to get away from theory because theory is dull as fuck. But what I need to be able to do is explain it in a way. And what I'm doing, using sort of a twister, hurricane that goes through your street, okay? So you've got, and what it does is it's like a twister that goes through your neighborhood. It just speaks everything up. It picks everything up. And that includes the rhetoric of socialists, the rhetoric of the working class, the rhetoric of anger and, resentment and all of those legitimate feelings. And what it does is it sort of sweeps everything up in its wake. And as it goes through these stages, but eventually it dumps everything out at sea. Okay, that's eventually what it does. Is it just everything is just dumped, and you see it becomes what it is, which is fucking violence and horrific and things and genocide and all those things. But when I talk about the United States being in early fascism, this is what I'm talking about, which is that there's this rhetoric that is unique to fascism that was borrowed by, the Nazis and by Mussolini. Stalin's different. Stalin is not technically classified as fascist. It's a uniquely different thing that is largely, there's a lot of it's a lot more complicated. It's its own unique sort of anomaly in history. But fascism in Germany and Italy in particular had a particular energy to it. And what it did was it took legitimate grievances in terms of, class struggle, workers' rights, poverty, chaos, an inability to get anything through Parliament, all of this sort of deadlock government, all of that legitimate grievance. And what it did was it took that stuff, that sentiment, that rage, okay, and swept it up and spat it out, okay? One thing, there's a lot of people that say that, that fascism, this weird distortion of history that comes from the intelligentsia of the United States, right, is that they were the National Socialists. It's like, yeah, they also openly killed Marxists as their first fucking order of business. And a large part of the reason that they rose to power was because the socialists were divided, bickering over fucking dumb shit as usual. Okay? Reformists versus revolutionaries. As usual, as fucking usual, the left were bickering over the how rather than the what. Okay, this is what's happened. And what it did was it took that rhetoric. Okay. It's okay, Diane. So Diane came on and said, "Evening, lovely, missed my alert, so I'm late to the party." It's okay. It took me fucking 20 minutes anyway to get to the fucking point. You haven't missed anything. So what fascism did that is unique that I think people really miss, and I think that when I say that I think that the United States is in
the early stages of fascism, and I say it with all sincerity, which is that I'm hearing this rhetoric that is chilling and chillingly similar to the co-opting that happened with the socialist movement around the rise of fascism in Europe. Okay, so remember, these are these little sort of slippery, dodgy things that sort of the US media and political people do, which is that they go, well, fascism only refers to Europe and it only refers to this specific period of time in Europe. Well, no. So fascism yes, that is true. Technically, it has only really succeeded, but the United States has actually studied this. They've dedicated copious resources to making sure that they can fucking get away with it. Okay, this is one of them. If you know your history, you understand that they've, done it. But what I'm saying, and this comes back to things to people like Russell Brand and Jimmy Dore, who I really respect and admire generally, but I don't know if they've bitten off more than they can chew. And this is where this culture war thing between accusing people of being alt-right but also on the outright blanket denial of the criticism that people are trying to make here, which is that this is I think, as I go on these bigger podcasts and really sort of push my stuff, I've got a big opportunity to be on a pretty big thing and I'm shitting my pants, but I'll do it anyway because I really want to get people thinking about history and what the data says, and that there is a real gateway to those forces. We are in those stages. We are very much past the early stage. In terms of rhetoric, and if you understand history, you understand where we're at. There is rhetoric that that the United States is in the Weimar Republic stage. I would actually say that they're further along than that, which I think that there's actually the sort of maybe second stage, which is that part where they've moved past that deadlock. They've moved past the collapse. They've moved past that stuff. I don't know whether that economic factor is the same because it's a different world, different economy. They're also the dominant economy. So so they're being propped up by the world, which is because we can't have the United States fail geopolitically. It's something that's different. Germany sort of descended more into, again, I'm wandering out of off lane here. I'm not going to talk about the economics. I don't know the details of that. But what I'm saying is that I can only talk about politically, okay, and how the economics relates politically, is that fascism is not a specific set of circumstances and a narrow definition. And that definition splitting, again, is something that is a distraction from what is actually really happening. So if you understand history and that, this obsession with defining the words and splitting and narrow definitions, it keeps people distracted from what is actually the phenomena that's actually occurring, which is that fascism is a moving phenomenon. It is something that borrows from everywhere. But what it does is it takes rage and it turns it inwards. Okay. It turns it and weaponizes it in the wrong direction towards a group of people. Again, it's not even uniquely anti-Semitic, which I found interesting. I didn't know that. But they just happened to be the biggest group in that example, okay? Those two groups were anti-Semitic, and it's sort of one of those things that's fused. But when you look at other fascist movements, it's always demonizing some sort of group, okay? Now, again, you can see where this smoke and mirrors of the United States and the way that they've borrowed and played and toyed with this psychology of fascism and tried to sort of, tame it and turn it into something where they could, retain power and global dominance is really fascinating. I know I've wandered off, but what I'm saying is that so through history, it's very important to understand this is something that is key. This is something that the right do, is go, oh, they were socialists and it was the liberals that did fascism. Well, no, that's not what happened. What happened was that they took that rage, okay? It's always more fucking complicated than these fuckheads say, okay? Which is that what they did was they took legitimate class rage, they took legitimate dysfunction, they took the intellectuals, so fascism as a movement, okay?
in the first stages, early stages, was propped up and made legitimate by the intellectual class, which is what we're seeing now. Okay, I'm not saying it's deliberate. I'm saying that like I said, if you think of it as a hurricane that just sort of, or you think about a person that that is just chaos and drama, but they're manipulative. They're kind of like the dark triad, or dark tetrad, like personality type, that Machiavellian personality type, where everything they touch, they absorb and they take and they use and they discard. Think of that as a political movement, and that's kind of what you're getting with fascism, okay? It takes and takes and takes and takes and takes, and then it turns on you and fucking murders you, okay? That's really, I'm trying to explain this. This is where I try to find the analogies that I think work. I watch it back, as you know, and then I go, oh, that worked, that didn't work. But what I'm seeing happen now again, I'm saying online is different to offline, okay? Online rhetoric is online rhetoric. But the problem is that people don't really know the difference anymore. There was a point where this stuff was online, it was taught, it was marketing, it was different. Everyone understood that the internet was not real life and it was a separate thing. It was thought experiments. You said outrageous shit. The understanding and the contract was that you say outrageous shit because you're trying to go viral, and that's viral, blah, blah, blah. But there's a whole bunch of people who don't know the difference, and it is having a downwind effect on politics and policy. And what I'm seeing there's this portion of the left. Now, this is not intended to gaslight. I'm not tending. The thing is that this is complicated. But these phenomena happen for a reason, and they happened in history for a reason. And without understanding really what happened, which was that a large portion of socialist rhetoric and stuff that should have been in the realm of socialism during that Weimar Republic, socialists were ineffective because they were too busy, first of all, too busy infighting, okay, with each other. And also they didn't understand that as a class, okay, and I'm going to say as a class of people, I'm not going to say that it's the same, but I'm going to say as a class of people, because science is showing that your politics is genetic, okay, and sometimes it's a combination of things, but, a lot of it is linked to your personality traits, and, like everything, it's more complicated. So I'm going to say as a class of people throughout history, socialists and communists have been the common enemy for a lot of these movements. And so when you know that, like, the anti-communist, anti-war, anti-socialist, anti-communist movement, largely led by the United States, but was the same thing in Germany. The thing that that helped Nazi Germany rise was that shared hatred of socialism. Socialists were too busy fucking fighting over shit. The Nazis borrowed a lot of rhetoric from the socialists around workers and that populism, right? And then what happened was that because the conservatives hate those guys, hate the socialists more than anything in the world, imagine dedicating so much fucking time and resources just so you don't have to share your shit. What kind of fucking fucktard do you have to be? Anyway, just so you don't have to fucking pay taxes and help your fellow man. That's a fucking interesting psychology, isn't it? I was saying that yesterday. I was like, imagine being the United States, how much money they've dedicated, how many trillions and trillions of dollars and hundreds of years, and all of this damage and harm that's been done just because they don't want to share their shit. When you think about it, that's what it comes down to. Socialism is just pay people fairly and share your shit. Anyway, it's not that hard. So anyway, but basically what happened, okay, was that it borrowed the language of socialism and borrowed the language that should have been, revolutionary energy and should have been, or even reformist, okay? You had to fucking, whatever you need to do to get people fed and looked after and things running, okay? Whatever the fuck you need to do. Stop bickering over semantics for a start. But what happened was that there was this shared hatred of communism that made them both
turn. And so the conservatives went along with a lot of what the Nazis were doing because they hated those guys, and there was this unholy alliance between conservatives and fascists, okay, in order to get rid of communists. And that's the part of history that America leaves out, because they're on this constant anti-communist war. It's been the thread of like the last, 200, 100, whatever years. I can't remember. What year is it? Fucking whatever. I stopped counting years in 2001. I fucking lost count. But, 120 years or whatever of fucking anti-communist, right? Anti-communism. And there's a disproportionate fucking over-the-top loathing and hatred of socialism and communism, right? But that's what happened, was that these things borrowed. So when you understand that historical context, which I explained very well and very badly, but that's okay. When you understand that historical fact about fascism, and you understand that it started in the early phases. I found this book quite chilling, actually, because I started to you'll really see it if you really just paying attention to what's going on now and a lot of the rhetoric that's happening, and it's like us versus elites. There's that chilling, and it's not revolutionary energy. It's a different, what was it that they called it? He called it in that book, demonic energy of fascism. There's a demonic energy in the air politically. This isn't revolutionary. There's an optimism and it's something else. And I'm not saying revolutions aren't violent. I'm saying I'm an advocate for non-violent revolution, as a last resort. I don't believe in, I don't believe in violence as a solution. But when reformism doesn't work, then you got to fucking do some shit. Okay. I like to avoid that. I don't think that it is avoidable if you ignore it. I don't think you can reform. I think you can be reformist, and I think it's possible if the other side are willing to fucking play, but they're not. So I think it's inevitable, but I don't advocate for it. See the difference? So there's a righteous energy that goes, and rage, and this is not fair, okay, kind of energy to revolution that is co-opted by fascism and turned on to groups and turned on to inward on the population and demonizing groups and all that sort of stuff rather than at those in charge, okay? But they use the rhetoric of overthrowing the elites, okay? But really what it is that they're using that to get power so that they become the elite. Does that make sense? So that's what happens, and that's kind of what we're seeing with these culture wars, which is that no one's bickering, no one's fighting over capitalism. They're fighting over who gets to run it. That no one's fighting against censorship. They're fighting about who gets to censor who, right? That's really where you're seeing this borrowing occurring of ideas. And so when I talk about audience capture, this links very much to that Russell Brand, that concern. Okay, now again, if you're being charitable, I could say that Russell Brand is clever in that he uses the clickbait headline. He attracts that mob of people, right? But then he talks more about sort of left-wing stuff, about elite, about that sort of legitimate sort of left-wing critique of power, okay? That's an interesting thing to watch, because he may think that he has control over this, but it will be interesting to see if he can do it. I'm of the view, like I did another video not long ago about Pauline Hanson, and it's the same thing where, it's not a one-way radicalizer. It's not a one-way conversation. Part of the reason why I am an advocate for going on these things is because you may not sway the person that you're talking to, but you may sway people in your audience who are already having doubts and thinking, oh, that guy's a bit full of shit. And then you hear someone who challenges them, and they might go further and they might start to think more clearly. Okay. And so that there's an argument there. But you need to really have your arguments. You need to know your shit. Part of the reason why I think a lot of the left wing, okay, and I use that term very loosely, but, traditional proper socialist left wing. I'm not talking about corporate Democrat woke kids who only hang out on Twitter. But a lot of these people won't debate because they don't have an argument. It's superficial, and they will also realize that they have more in common with these guys than not. The difference between someone like, say, because Sam Cedar, I stumbled on Sam Cedar from the Minority Report, right? I got recommended a Sam Cedar video, and it was quite funny because it sent me to a rabbit hole of being basically, he just roasts Dave Rubin all of the time. But Sam and Michael Brooks, who passed away last year, unfortunately, but I wasn't familiar with their stuff, but it just, it was recommended, so I had a go. But what's really funny about that is that they actually have debates, and I want people to know that there are people having debates on the left about this stuff. And this is where the right sort of lie to you, and they tell you that no one on the left is talking about stuff, but they are. Like, how do you say Jacobin magazine? Like, they're having these conversations. They're anti-woke, okay? Anna Kasparian is talking about this stuff, not on the Young Turks because that's a corporate thing, but, when she does other things like the socialist stuff, she's talking about this stuff. She will engage in debate. Sam Cedar will engage in debate. They also think that the trans issue is not the only fucking issue, and I agree. They think that there's a bigger picture here, which I happen to agree with, and I also happen to know that one of the things that fascism does is borrow from the left. And one of the things I also know is that the Radfems have a fucking nice history of pairing up with Christian conservatives and being part of laws that they fucking shouldn't be part of. A prohibition. Fuck's sake. And this is what I'm saying, is that you're being used. And I'm seeing this happen over and over again, which is that it's not about the issue. Okay. So anyway. But with Sam Cedar, it's just like, there are people having the arguments, and there are people but the right are so bad faith, and they think that bullying is debate, which isn't, because they don't have an argument either, because all they do is just say something so ridiculously stupid that you're left. But the difference between me and them is that I actually know everything they're going to say, which is this Nazi socialist socialist party thing. Yeah. They borrowed from that. They rebranded, much like you fuckstick. Okay? I see what you're doing. They did exactly what you're doing, which is pretending to give a fuck about the working class when you do not. Because in policy, they fight for lower taxes. They defend billionaires. These Christians, I said this morning, the fucking Babylon Bee guy defending Elon Musk. I was like, have you read Jesus ever? When he fucking wanted to tear all of this shit down. Jesus was a socialist, you dumb fuck. Why are you defending billionaires, Christian? Person who claims to be Christian? For fuck's sake. How far away from Christian scripture do you need to be defending Elon Musk's right to not pay taxes? I don't think that's what he said, bro. Fuck me. Anyway. This is really what I'm trying to get through to people is, like, I know I'm talking about audience capture, but this is the problem with this rhetoric. And I think that what needs to happen is that these left-wing commentators need to be on high alert. Now, that's not me saying ooga booga far right. I'm not stripping you of their, if anything, I'm not stripping them of their agency by saying this. I'm giving them a fucking, well, no one's listening to me. When I go on the bigger podcasts, they might hear me, but I'm saying that this is a very precarious situation where you may end up in that hurricane. What you may find yourself doing is ending up with someone like Tucker Carlson, who I find deeply chilling, okay, with his rhetoric. I find Josh Hawley deeply chilling. I find a lot of that part of the right deeply chilling. Now, I understand there's a political difference. I'm not saying it to be judgmental. I'm saying when you understand history, you understand how these things move and the kinds of personalities that are attracted to this kind of thing. and how you can see those dynamics starting to play out. And you might be a little further ahead than other people because you get the heebie-jeebies and you understand that this might actually be a thing. And this is the path this is the thing that I think that a lot of the wokes can't articulate. Okay? Because they turn around and they go, oh, this looks bad. This feels bad. They're bad people. Yeah, they are. I don't think Tucker Carlson's a good person. I don't. Okay. And I think that he's dangerous. Okay. I think Fox News can be dangerous. Okay. All of the data and all of the evidence from most of the studies around radicalization and propaganda is coming through that fucking network. Okay. But what's happening is that there's a whole bunch of people on the left who are confused because they confuse the corporate media and the corporate Democrats with the left, which is not the case. So when I go on these podcasts, the one thing that I'm going to try and mention is that if you, for all that you think that the right is censored, which they're not, okay, only the most egregious dickheads who probably I agree with it, probably. And again, it's not because I agree with them being censored per se. It's because I think that they're radicalizing people in a direction that they don't realize that they're doing. They're inciting. There's a point where they are inciting real world harm. This is complicated. Okay. This is, I do believe that it, for the most part, crosses the line into incitement. But for the most part, Tim Pool's never going to be fucking censored. Do you think that's going to happen? Dave Rubin's not going to be censored. Ben Shapiro, not going to be censored. Okay, if anything, that's going to fucking elevate them further and encourage them. But also, you know, like if you actually look at the numbers and you look at the data and you look at the stats, the traffic, the money, the clicks, okay, the ads, all of that shit, like it's heavy right-wing content that gets this. YouTube aren't fucking left-wing, for fuck's sake. But also, if you look, you will see that the suppression on the left is fucking tenfold. And the reason why you're not seeing left-wing critiques of this stuff, I had to go looking, okay? Otherwise, fucking Jordan Peterson shows up in my recommendations all time, non-stop. I have not really had any real socialist content recommended to me. I have to go out of my way to see it. It is suppressed. Socialist content is far more suppressed. But there are people talking about this stuff and there are people criticizing this stuff. And I think that's the only real message that I'm trying to get out there, is that this idea. So when you find out that someone's lied to you once, what do you do with that information? Okay. When you find out that someone's, you know, concealing information or that they know not to be true, that gives you more, that gives you more to work on. And the fact that people are saying that no one on the left is talking about this, well, seemingly no, because it's suppressed and censored heavily. But when you see conservatives and fucking alt-right and all of these, like, you know, all of these IDW fucking grifty types, right? You see them going off saying that no one's talking about it on the left. And then you see Jimmy Dore and Russell Brand saying no one's talking about it on the left. I find that concerning because when you understand history and how it is heavily stacked in the favor of fascism when this occurs, okay? Anti-communism is the theme, okay? Anti-Semitism, anti-communism, anti-socialism, you know, and racist colonialist, okay? Let's factor in anti-communism into this whole fucking thing as a group of people, okay, through our history who have been fucking attacked. This is what this is the argument that I need to try and put forth, which is that there's a lot of people hungry for real solutions and real content, and there's a whole love bomb there of people who aren't telling you the truth. They're not telling you the truth. And this is where I have this Russell Brand. I go, is he smart? Is he wise? Does he see things the way I see them? Has he read about fascism? Does he understand what the risks are? Or is he just falling for this stuff for clicks and not realizing kind of the machine and the beast the monster that he has, the risk of this?
Same with Jimmy Dore. Jimmy Dore worries me. And I don't mean it in a way that I'm saying that it's a conscious thing. I'm saying it's as a strategy. And in terms of biting off more than you can chew politically, in terms of understanding of history and understanding how well-intentioned, like socialists, academics, intellectuals, all of those people in the early stages of fascism before it got away from us and they fucking murdered us all. Okay? Before it got, the first thing that the fucking Nazis did was kill the socialists. Okay? And that's where, that was the thing. There was pretty much a consensus on and left out of history, which is that they also killed fucking Marxists. All right? And this is where America's sanitization and leaving out of history and redefinition of what actually happened is incredibly dangerous. Because they want us dead too. Okay, they want anyone who dissents from their fucking shit dead. And that fucking scares me. And again, I'm not equating, I'm not making this, I'm not equating those things. Nobody is dismissing what happened. And I'm not making false equivalencies here. I'm saying this is what fucking happened. I had this person on Twitter going on about how I was anti-Semitic for saying this. And I was like, they killed my people too, right? Gypsies. They killed, it's like, yeah, I get it. I'm not saying that. Straw manning me is bullshit. I'm saying they killed a lot of fucking people. Socialists, gypsies was fucking two groups. Stop turning everything into a fucking oppression Olympics. Bullshit. Facts matter. Anyway, so, but this is a deliberate ploy by the United States to take the teeth out of fascism, strip it of what actually happened, strip it of its material relevance in terms of history, what actually fucking happened. And then turn it so that they can actually tweak it at the edges and turn it into the United States government. Okay? It's bizarre. When you'll get chills. And he actually was funny, that book actually, because what happened, he says, everyone else defines it like liberalism as this. America defines it as this. Everyone else defines it as this. America defines it as this. This is what we're dealing with. It's like, this is the contempt that political scientists outside of the United States have for this redefinition of terms and history and what happened and this rewriting of history. It's like, oh yeah, apparently Jesus was pro-billionaire. Jesus was pro-rich people. That was the thing we love about Jesus the most, was his sympathy for people who hoarded all the wealth at the expense of the poor. That was what Jesus loved to do. How backward is it? Anyway. Fucking hell. I don't understand. It's like the Twilight Zone, man. Fuck me. I was like, I feel like whenever I hear Americans talk about politics, even experts, and there's, obviously they've invested a lot of money in this stuff, in the universities, in developing, I would argue the horseshoe theory is US propaganda. It's creating a false equivalency between fascism and communism that does not exist. Again, this idea that socialism turns into fascism is leaving out large parts of history. And also this idea that communism is, it's more complicated than that. And it's not what happened. And horseshoe theory is a pamphlet that's telling you not to fucking, it's insane. So anyway, I'm going to go. I did it 45 minutes and it just, I don't feel like doing, I am going to go, but I just want to say that if you're watching these things, I would recommend this book first of all. You can get it as an audiobook. I actually listened to it as an audiobook. I didn't read it. It was enlightening. But if you're on the left, I think you need to be very careful. And it's not, the problem is that the criticism are genuine. They are data-based, but the message isn't getting out because it's been put into this massive fucking culture war, like, cycle, like laundering of fucking ideas, which is that there is a very real threat of fascism here. There is a group of people who are quite happy to like take advantage of it, and they don't know what they're fucking doing. There's a whole bunch of people who are like using this rhetoric in a way that I don't think they quite understand where this leads. They're making buddies with people who are not trustworthy, and I sit there and I go like, this is stage 2 stuff. This is stuff when they start saying that critical theory and the far left are the greatest enemy. This is the kind of rhetoric that got a whole bunch of people fucking killed before. Okay? A lot. Not just in Nazi Germany, but over fucking... The second they start demonizing this stuff, that's when it's like, oh, shit. And this is the thing where people need to really start paying attention to their intuition on when the rhetoric. Now, I'm not saying that I'm not saying that Jimmy or Russell or anyone, Tim Pool terrifies me because he's whipping people into a frenzy just for profit. He don't give a fuck. He goes where the money is. Okay? And that's even worse. That's a bad person. I don't like, no. But I have more sympathy for those that he's willfully fucking stupid. But people like Jimmy Dore and Russell Brand, and again, I'm not saying I'm not charitable. I understand where they're at. But I don't know if they're that clever where they think that they can circumvent these forces that are largely fucking like gravity, which is that they're going to be fucking swallowed whole into this thing that they didn't intend to be part of. And it's the same thing with all these academics who are manufacturing consent on behalf of the United States to demonize. You know, I just find it, is it going to be women? Is it going to be fucking women that are fucking wiped out? My biggest worry, and this is the thing that I think about, who's going to be the group they turn on the hardest? And I don't know who that's going to be. It may well be the actual working class. It may be working class women. But usually it ends up being minorities. Like this thing about Black Lives Matter, and yeah, you can focus on the groups, as I did. I felt, like there are problems. There's corruption there. Again, I said this at the beginning of the stream. Any legitimate movement is going to have grifters and people who take advantage. That's the nature of the beast. That's capitalism under, and this weird woke ideology is a fucking factory for corruption because it comes out of the United States. It's going to be a part of the grift culture. But if that's used as a means of saying that it's terrifying to think what could actually come out of this policy-wise, it's worrying. I hear people saying, like this stuff about the caravans on the border, again, wandering out of lane. I'm not going to talk too much about it, but calling people illegals when they have the right to seek asylum, that's a legal right. Okay. But then they say, but they were breaking the law. And I go, well, that's not the argument. They weren't breaking the law. They have the legal right to seek asylum. And there's a process attached to that. So they need to say that they're seeking asylum. It's not an argument. They're not breaking the law. They have the right, a human right to seek asylum. And that's where the facts are just not, these narratives are hoodwinking even good people. And that's where things get dangerous, when good people who would ordinarily, when they had all of the facts, not conduct themselves in this manner. But the problem is that you're seeing good people who are being given half of the story or none of the facts and are walking headfirst into something that I don't think that they would necessarily sign up for if they had all of the information. And that's the problem with audience capture, is that I know I didn't explain what it is, but that's kind of boring. But in marketing, it's basically taking taking what you get from one audience and transplanting them elsewhere to sell them other things. And so what happens there in YouTube, so that in marketing, that's what audience capture is. in this specific sense, it is that feedback loop between creator and audience that the creator gets radicalized by the audience as well. So it went based on that machine of numbers and the feedback loop and popularity and getting more money and super chats. Now, also, one thing that Dore actually pointed out, and I'd forgotten about this study. Again, there's things I assume everyone knows that are actually really relevant and interesting. So thank you, Dore, for reminding me. Is that like this happened with the Doge thing, where don't even trust the fact that all of these super chats are real. There's scams out there where they will just sit there bombing with super chats for social proof, and then they're actually using their own money to create the illusion that they're popular, and people get caught up and they start using the super chat functionality, and they take money from the people who are getting swept up in that social proof. Okay, so it's all illusion and scams and smoke and mirrors. Now, I'm not saying they all are. I'm saying that it is very easy to make someone feel love bombed if they're a cultural asset or of strategic benefit to you and your political cause. I'm saying these gaps exist and these vulnerabilities exist. Now, is Russell Brand a brilliant digital strategist? Does he have one? Maybe. Is Jimmy Dore brilliant and understand the intricacies of the history of fascism? Maybe. Okay, maybe. Again, I'm saying maybe they do. But what they're doing is worrying, because I don't know if they are or not. And that's the thing, is that you go, well, this looks a lot. I can understand why people are saying this anti-vax route is a dangerous and precarious one, and it's radicalizing people. I can see that criticism. Yes, just asking questions. But that just asking questions thing is the lead magnet. Just asking questions about gender, just asking questions about this, just wanting to say what I want to say is their lead magnet, where they will get you and they will love bomb you and they will give you an audience and they will fucking... Do you know that my subscriptions have frozen since I started talking about this? I grew rapidly, and then the second that just turned off. Okay, my interactions on Twitter disappeared. Every time, and I do this every so often, I'll pop my head out and write a really good joke about the fucking Culture Wars design joke, and it will get fucking 600, 700,000 likes on it. Okay? But every other thing gets nothing. I get a lot of, obviously, behind the scenes stuff, but not directly public, even when I'm talking about very important things. What's interesting is what doesn't get interaction. What's more interesting to me is what doesn't get interaction that is important, that people should know, versus it's an interesting, I've been A/B testing this, okay? Don't think I'm not testing things. That's people's mistake. I understand this stuff. I know the numbers and I know trends and I can spot bullshit. And what I'm saying is, I know I was going to go. I will. But this is my concern, is how precarious this is, which is that as inarticulate and stupid that some of the blue hairs might be, they've got a point. Okay? But there is a large portion of the left that know their history, have read books, they understand what's going on, and we need to heed their warning, even if you don't agree with them on gender. You need to listen to the other stuff. Because we still, excuse me, cock in my throat, we still need, it's like it's throwing the baby out with the bathwater. Okay? Suddenly you're not listening to anything. It's crazy. I've seen people go full anti-vax in the space of 2 months because they fucking don't get, it's like, what the fuck? Yes, I understand that thing, that complicated relationship with pharma. And this is what I'm going to talk about on, sorry, I wasn't going to talk about where I'm going on. Anyway, I'm going on things. And this is what I plan to try and explain about the differences between Australia and America and why they think that this is authoritarian when it isn't, which is that that in Australia, we understand that this is a state of emergency. We understand emergency powers. We understand the concept of an emergency and emergency powers, and that this is an exceptional situation that needs exceptional use of power. That is something we understand. America is in a constant fucking state of emergency because of their news cycle and their fucking anxiety and their stress and the culture of fear. Being reds under the beds, fucking, the Cold War, stop and drop, fucking constant news, 24 news. Of course they don't understand the difference between that and the fucking emergency powers and state of emergency, because they're always in a fucking state of emergency. And that's going to have an impact on, it's like crying wolf. That's going to have an impact on how people see things. So that's the difference really between Australia, is that we understand that this is exceptional. I think most of us go, yeah, they're not normally like this. Okay, do what you need to do. Right? That's the difference, is that we understand the difference. And those that oppose it are fucking usually dimwits who have consumed too much Q. Okay? But you guys just don't have any real sense of a real emergency, because you're constantly in a fucking emergency. And there's that hyper arousal, is what it's called, okay? A constant state of hyper arousal, fear of your neighbor, fear of everything. And this is something that is unique to America, that is just a constant fear. And you guys, if Americans see this, you'll know exactly what I'm saying, that it's what I'm saying is true. This hyper alert, hyper individual, fucking hair trigger, constant fear and anxiety. Of course you're not going to understand when there's an actual emergency. Right? That's a natural psychological response, that you don't fucking understand that there's an actual emergency. It's like me because I live with chronic pain. When I have actual pain, I go, I tend to dismiss things when they're serious because I always live with fucking pain and illness. It's the same thing, right? And that's what I'm going to try to get through to people, which is that there is a difference, because I don't want to, I'm trying to figure out ways of explaining things without using theory and being boring like I am with you. And wandering off. But that's the example that that's the way I'm going to try and explain the difference between Australia and America, is that we understand this shit, because we're not always fucking afraid of everything all the time. Anyway, I'm going to go. I said I was going to go, but it's good to be back. I will sort my shit out and I'll be back soon. I'm doing biopsych at the moment, which means I've got to learn a lot of fucking body parts. I'm not a science person. I understand that I've got to study psychology and I love psychology, but the parts, I'm not that kind of brain. I don't have a maths brain. I don't have that, but I'm going to get through it because it is still important. It's still important for my work. Because it also, but whatever. I'm going to go. I love you. I'm going to be on the Fantasy podcast. That's weird, but let's not talk about that. I'm shitting my dacks. Love you. Thanks for watching. My end button doesn't work, so it's just going to be a hard fucking nope. And, anyway, I love you. If you want to, sign up to my website soon. I'm going to be launching it next week, because I've got to have it all done by the time that podcast comes out. So, but, talk soon. Bye. Where is it? I'm used to hitting one button. Where the fuck is it? Bye-bye.